You're listening to The Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everybody, welcome to podcast 109 for the Broken Meeple. It's a little bit on the warm side today. We've had a bit of a weird winter where we've had so many really bad cold snaps in the UK, but they're great for me because I like sunshine combined with cold weather. It's why I like Norway so much when I went there. You don't get a lot of sunshine there at certain times of the year, but man, it just looks gorgeous with sun and cold. Unfortunately, the last couple of days, the temperature sort of shot up randomly to 15 degrees outside, and then it's going to be colder for the rest of the month. But 15 out there usually translates to about 20 in my house for some reason. So I don't know why my house is suddenly so warm. So even in here, it just feels like, and this is just March. When we get to summer and it starts being 20 or so degrees outside, plus, 20 to 25, my house becomes an absolute furnace. I hate the summer with a passion. There is nothing, apart from it being bright and sunny, there is nothing about the summer that really gets me, excited or interested, because it's just too hot to enjoy anything. You spend all your time sweating. I am very much a cold-blooded, I'm a cold-blooded lizard. I need cold. I need cold, although some lizards like it hot. I don't know, but I'm not an expert. But yeah, other than that, not too bad. Work has been pretty strenuous lately, and certainly this last week was quite a pivotal moment. That didn't go the way I planned, so, we'll just have to see how things go after that. But, I get by. And the problem with my neck and back is sort of okay, I don't know, but the problem is I've got something at the back, possibly because of the stress, tenses that part in my back. And it feels super tight all the time, and occasionally it spasms or something, meaning that it's really, nasty for me to sort of lift something up or whatever, and it just comes without warning. It doesn't make sleep very great, but it's kind of odd. But I mean, I am seeing someone about it, so hopefully it'll be treated over time. And now that the worst part of the work thing has gone, perhaps things will mellow out a little bit now as I have a game plan of what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's just, like I say, my health has never been fantastic ever since I became 40, but we'll just have to see if things improve on that front. But otherwise, podcast-wise, not doing too bad at all. The top 50 has finally finished. Finally, it's done. And yes, I'm definitely sticking to 50 going forward. I think 100 would have just absolutely wiped me out. But 50 seemed pretty good. We started it, when did we start the top 50? We started it, first one aired Feb 11th, and the last one aired March the 2nd. Yeah, so it was all wrapped up within the space of a month. That's decent enough for me, I think. 1 month to get 5 videos out with all the prep, all the editing, everything like that. I think that's pretty good going, and that's including the fact that there's podcasts in between and the Finspan review, which obviously took quite a lot of time to edit, and we've just had time for a 16-bit video game champion speed review. So if you want to know why I disagree with why the Dice Tower gave it 9 out of 10s, then by all means go check out that video. But yeah, so yeah, the channel's done pretty good. I mean, look at these top 50s. They certainly increase a bit. Look at that, 7,000 there, just under 7,000 there, 7,500 there. So those ones tend to cap around that point. And then we get to the 20 to 11, it's nearly 9,500 there. And then the top 10, 14,000. So they get the views. Certainly they get the views, and hopefully everybody enjoyed them. I mean, the high 90s, lots of engagement, this is all good, but by all means, share them out on social media. Let's spread the word that there's some good videos here. So hopefully, they've been entertaining for you. There's certainly been a lot of good feedback. In terms of what's up next, hard to say really, because there's only one review on the cards at the moment, which is Galactic Cruise. Galactic Cruise is 75% edited as I speak now. If I've got time today, I will try to edit it today. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till Wednesday for it to be edited, because I'm going to be busy till Monday and Tuesday. But yes, this Galactic Cruise review is going to be a long one. I mean, I've said on occasion that, oh yeah, this is the longest review I've done. This is the longest review I've done. And what do we have? We had Finspan for 31 minutes. What were the recent big reviews I've done? That ended up being quite long. Andromeda's Edge was 35 minutes. Shackleton Base was 34 minutes, right? And Hegemony, how long was Hegemony? Hegemony was, surprisingly, Hegemony was under 30 minutes. Something tells me I probably should have said more about that game, because I don't know how I managed to condense that to 30 minutes. But yeah, I want to get more detail out about these games. Oh god, yeah, 37 minutes for Inventors of the South Tigris. So yeah, there's been a lot to talk about with these games, you know, especially the heavy ones. The heavy ones, or the ones that have got a lot of rules, a lot of mechanics, a lot of things going on. You can't wrap them up in speed reviews. You can't do short reviews for them. You just will not explain enough. And I find this problem when I watch a lot of creators at the moment, that, you know, this massive game they're talking about and they're doing the review in 10 minutes, and it's like, you cannot possibly tell me enough about this game in 10 minutes. You know, you are glossing over flaws, you are just ignoring major details, or you're just basically speaking in hyperbole and just saying, yeah, we think it's lovely, yeah, it's great, yeah, amazing, 10 minutes are up, right, done. You know, well, where was the detail? You know, I'm getting a lot of that. So the videos are long, but, you know, very few people complain about that, so I'm not really going to complain too much myself. But when I say this new one is long, I mean it's long. We are going over the 40-minute mark here. I don't know how long it is already. It's definitely somewhere between 40 to 45 minutes, but it's a long review. There is a ton to talk about with Galactic Cruise. You know, there's a lot of things in the game. There's the solo mode. I've gone into detail talking about the solo mode as well, and that's the thing. If I was to just, a lot of these other creators don't talk about the solo much, so, you know, the review would probably be somewhere in the 37-minute mark if I didn't talk about the solo mode. But I need to talk about solo, but I don't want to do the classic cheese method of doing one video for normal and one video for solo. I've tried that before, and I find that sort of hurts it a bit, but you get timestamps in the video. So if you're only interested in the solo mode, you can just skip along to the solo section. You know, that is what I do now. I separate the solo section out so that you can watch that bit on its own without having to watch the rest of the video if that's what you need. So I just find it's easier to combine them into one video. But yeah, it's going to be a long one, but I'm pretty proud of it. I think there's a lot of points getting across. I think it's a pretty fair review, and, you know, I love the fact that I've managed to use one of my guilty pleasure movies that fit, like, just joke-wise, just fit so well for this game, and the entire review only uses clips from this movie. So this is a first. Normally I've got all sorts of different clips in the library, you know, to use, but now I've literally just gone, everything's got to come from this movie. You know, I am basically using this movie's theme to deal with it. You've got to use this film. You can't use any other clip. And believe me, that was harder than it looked. But yeah, and certainly not every single memorable quote is going to come from the movie, okay? You know, you can't, not every single quote in the movie works. You can't just randomly shove it in and expect it to work. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So if I can get it edited today, you'll probably get this on Tuesday. I reckon Monday or Tuesday I'll air Galactic Cruise. If I can't edit it till Wednesday, then you'll get it on Wednesday. You know, you'll get it on Tuesday or Wednesday, I suspect. So not long to wait. You know, remember, the review is coming very soon. Anything else on the way? Well, not really. I mean, top 10 lists I need to think about. So, you know, now that there's not many games out to review, I need to do some top 10s, and there are some top 10s that I should maybe consider doing again, like the solo, the top 10 essential games, the top 10 you know, best, you know, top, maybe not expansions, but, you know, there's a few top 10 lists that I think could do with an update. Even top 10 tiny games. I mean, top 10 tiny games is one of the most popular videos on my channel, and I still to this day don't quite understand why. If I find it, top 10 tiny. This is one where I posed in my original long wool coat. This is when I started getting into wool coats like crazy. But where is it? No, I need the I need the top 10 tiny games. Where is it? Come on, top 10 tiny games. Bring it back. Okay, top 10. It keeps bringing me to this. Hang on, if I actually just go into the video itself. Oop, here we go. So this is an oldie. I mean, this is such an oldie because this is when I was standing in the other room. Oop, there we go. So this is when I was standing in the other room doing this. And I must admit, I do kind of miss that backdrop a little bit, where I used to stand in my other room with the games in the background. It was a nice backdrop, but it could get very hot in there. It was a bit of a palaver to set the camera up in there and then transfer it to here and then set it up in there and then transfer it to here. So there was a few instances like that where it just got a little bit annoying, and I just decided, you know what, let's just keep everything in the games room. It's a lot easier that way. But where's the bit I was trying to find? Here we go. So to 106,000 views. Now, this is 3 years old, so it's had time to build up, but there is just something about this video that is making it stupidly popular, and I don't know why. I mean, it was just called Top 10 Tiny or Pocket-Sized Board and Card Games. I mean, how is this so popular? I don't get it. What was it? Were people just like looking for tiny games at one point, and that's how it worked? It just seems like absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm not going to complain, but you know, if I could figure out what made that get 100,000 views in 3 years or something, I would kind of like to be able to repeat that process and actually get more of my videos to do that. But but maybe I should do a repeat of top 10 tiny games. The only thing is, would top 10 tiny games be the same games? I don't know, but that could do with a redo. But then I also wanted to do things like the top 10 games for 4 players, you know, the top 10 Euro games for 4 players, because I still think that would be an interesting list, because it's actually pretty hard to put together a list for that at the moment. You know, there's not many examples, and there's other topics that people have suggested, you know, so I certainly want to get a decent amount of content out and maybe get back to some top 10 lists now that we're in a lull where there's not so much in the way of board games to review. I say Galactic Cruise was a recently fulfilling on Kickstarter, and I got a review copy, so that's why I'm reviewing it. But everything else in the collection is kind of already reviewed. I don't have any other games really to talk about. The only game I've got left to play that is on the shelf of shame is Kraftwerken. Kraftwerken, the Age of Engineering, or whatever it is. It's the new Arcane Wonders version. I just haven't got round to learning the rules and actually playing it. You know, there's something about it that makes me want to play it, but there's something about it that makes me want to just say, it's not worth it. I don't know what it is. It's just giving me a weird vibe, especially as I'm hearing no one talk about it. That's the bit that worries me. You'd expect to hear somebody talk about the game, you know, to give me some idea of how popular it is, and I'm just seeing nothing. So that kind of worries me, but hopefully at some point I can get around to learning the rules to it. It's not meant to be a hard game, and see if it's any good, you know, because I like motor cars and, you know, cars and theme games like that. So the theme speaks to me. I'm just hoping that it's a good game. But yeah, at some point I really should catch up with that. Beer and coffee. Right, okay. Ooh, there goes me back. Right. Okay, so right, what are we going to do on this one? Well, first, let's talk about a game that I played literally yesterday. And to be fair, we didn't actually finish the whole game. We had to sort of cut it short a bit. But, you know, I certainly got about, like, 3/4 of the game done, so I got an idea. And I'd certainly like to give this one another try. It's called Biome, and I think this was a Kickstarter. You know, because it certainly hasn't... I've never seen it in a retail store or on a retail website. But my friend was wanting to show me this game because, I mean, was it Lioness Games, who I'm not even aware of made anything else. Nope, this is it. This is their independent board game publisher, first game, January 23, so they're very recent, and they pledge 5% of all profits to nature and biodiversity. Okay, cool. No, not going to fault that. But basically, I think its first game came out, Spiel in 23. And I never saw this. I never saw this at Spiel 23. I must have just completely glossed over it. But, you know, my friend's got it, and he had the deluxe version, so, you know, he wanted to show me it. This is, best description, a cross between Earth and Wingspan. I mean, it's definitely that same theme of here's animals and plants, and let's build a tableau of cards and trigger actions. I mean, that's definitely basically Wingspan and Earth down to a T, isn't it? But this one's got some interesting little quirks about it. I mean, it's not a perfect game. There's definitely some issues. But I think overall, I enjoyed my time, and I would like to try it with some of the expansion elements in there to make it maybe a bit more fleshed out. But basically what you're doing is you've got this tableau board, 3 zones. So, yep, this is basically Wingspan. I mean, called Blimey. You want heavily influenced by Wingspan, you've got it. And the idea is that you got all these different cards, birds, plants, you know, animals, trees, whatever, and you play them in the 3 different zones, and they've each got an action on them. But unlike Wingspan, where you trigger them based on activating them when you activate a zone or when you play the card, here you only get to activate each card's ability once in the game. So each round, you've got mostly a simultaneous play. So there's actually not a lot of downtime in this game. You've only got 1 bit that is done in turn order. The rest of it's all pretty much simultaneous. So that's a pretty good start. But what you end up doing is, if I can, you know, and the artwork's decent as well. But let me, come on. All I can find is, right, let's try and get here. So, you know, you play these, we'll get onto the nests in a minute, all right? These nests are pretty cool. But you play these animals, they've got a resource cost, you've got different food resources. Again, this is so like Wingspan, it's unreal. But basically, each round, you get to draw some cards, you get to get some resources, you get to play a card, a single card, into one of these zones, and there's restrictions on where certain things can go, and there's, you know, ones you want next to each other, a little spatial awareness in places. And then, in turn order, everybody gets to activate one card on their display. One card, that's it. That's what the cubes are there. They say you've already activated this card. Once you've activated it, that's it. It doesn't do anything else for the rest of the game, unless it's making babies. We'll get onto that. But it's quite an interesting thing, because now you can sort of go, well, I'm going to play this card, and I want to use this ability, but I'm going to use it later on in the game, rather than do it now. You know, I want this card for a different reason. You might have a card that you want to use the ability of immediately. You might have a card that you'll never use the ability of. You just wanted to use it for its card type, for something else, like an objective. And that's got a neat little twist. I mean, it does litter your board with a few cubes by the end, but I just found that quite a cool gimmick, that you've really got to be choosy about when to use these abilities. There's a little bit of extra thinkiness there. But you're probably wondering, what the hell is it with all these nests? Well, the nests are a gimmick, but man, as gimmicks go, this is one of the cutest little gimmicks I've ever seen in a game. Basically, you've got animals like rabbits and birds that make babies. So you can make chicks, or you can make little bunnies. I mean, how cute is that? And essentially, the trees that you have nest symbols on them. They look like these nests, these perfect sort of brown straw circular nests. These are literally made out of brown straw. You know, that is what they're made out of. This isn't plastic. Well, if it's plastic, it's very convincing that it's not plastic. But I believe they are actually made out of straw. But these nests, basically, they're printed on the cards, and you have capacity for so many animals to nest in them, like a duck or something. And each round, they produce, in a certain phase, they go in seasonal phases, a number of babies. And those babies you put in these little nests, and it looks cute as anything. But there are cards, like this snake here, that are predators. And after you've done nesting, players can basically try to eat the babies of other people's boards as the predator. You know, snake goes after little bunnies or something. If you find that horrific, that is just part of nature. I mean, that is just what the way it is. But, you know, if you can retain these babies, you know, this is the one mechanic that's a little bit weak. You roll a die, and if you get higher than the number of plants in that biome, then you eat a couple of babies. And, you know, it's not easy to have a biome full of plants, you know, and the fact that it's based on a die roll just seems a little bit, I wish there was a more deterministic way of doing it. But the idea is that if you eat some babies, you'll get some victory points for doing it. If you retain them, i.e. if you're able, the ones that you've got left, not only do you score points for having them, but you also have to feed them. So you need to have spare resources, not for just playing the cards, but also to actually feed the babies that are left. But it kind of puts a little bit of a balancing act on the whole your baby's just got eaten thing. And I know this sounds horrific on audio, but, you know, bear with me. The idea is that you put aside resources to go, right, I got to feed all these kids. This is kind of annoying. Like loads of these fishies, loads of these rats. Some of them get eaten. You don't have to spend as many resources to feed them anymore, which means those resources can go on other cards or other things, or maybe future kids. So it doesn't feel as bad if your stuff gets eaten, because you actually do benefit slightly from it. And that's different and doesn't feel quite too punishing. I just kind of wish maybe it wasn't based on a die roll. That is a little weakness, but I can get over it. But God, look at this cuteness. I mean, look at these little baby little like chicken little meeples here, and you put them in the little nest. It's just so adorable. It just looks so nice on your board. I mean, you can't help but get the fuzzies from seeing them. And I don't know if this is in the retail version of it. I mean, this was the deluxe version of Biome, and I don't think it was a ridiculously expensive one. But man, I would want these nests because they do look really nice. This wheel, I think, is an expansion thing with the weather, so I hope to try that at some point. But I was quite impressed with this, actually. I thought this was going to be a very forgettable experience, because these little Kickstarters that come out of nowhere that are basically 90% copying Wingspan, I'm sorry, half of these just are, you know, that I thought it would be quite forgettable. But you've got the little objectives here to score a race for that. You've got a victory point track that you go around and get bonuses as you go through. All the iconography on the board is clear as day to read and what it does. The only flaw I really had was that the cards themselves have got some fairly intricate abilities on them, and they're quite interactive. I mean, a lot of them say give stuff to other players or take stuff from other players. You know, well, not so many that take, more give. So it's like, give a couple of cards to other players. You get a reward, or you get a bunch of resources. Everybody else gets a resource. So there's a lot of interaction in that sense. But the abilities do get a little bit like, oh, blimey, that's quite a bit of text to read, a bit of icons to read. And when you've got a lot of these cards in your hand, I mean, your hand size is 8, and you can easily have more than that at any particular point. You know, we're getting onto like Earth territory here. You do have quite a lot of stuff to read. and it can lead to a little bit of AP-ness where you're constantly looking at your hand trying to think, well, what on earth's the good part? What on earth do I play? There's just so much choice here, which makes me enjoy the game, because that's kind of one of the things I like about Earth. Because Earth gives you a million cards at any particular moment, and you have to decide what's the best battles. And you've got to think, well, this is useful, this is pretty useful, this is essential, this is garbage, and the ones that you don't want, you discard to get resources, or you give those to other players. So there's a decent amount of thinkiness that goes into this. This is light, but it's not crazy light. This is definitely on the same level, I would say, as Wingspan. There's enough going on. But I think this is actually quite a nippy little game. I mean, I want to try and play a full game of it. We did only play 3/4 of it, so I didn't really get the full experience. And I would like to try some of the expansion elements. I think there's some different cards here. You've got this weather wheel that looks like you spin the wheel, and depending on what weather it has some effect. I mean, I don't know, maybe a luck randomness of that might get on my nerves, but, it's a light game, so a little bit of randomness in that is not really going to hurt. But, I want to try this with more stuff out. But I gotta say, I was quite impressed. I really thought that this would be quite a forgettable game. And I remember the last time somebody showed me a animal-themed game that was kind of half copying the others. I think it was called Kavanga or something, or Kavang something. Kavanga, I think. And it was like, you placed like animal cards out and that, but that one had a lot of really clunky mechanics in that didn't feel like it was well thought out. I mean, there was a lot of mechanical issues in that game. This one actually seemed pretty good. I mean, if it was done by somebody who was well known in terms of designing and publishing, I could see this being a lot more popular than it actually is, because I don't think it's like that well heard of. I mean, hell, I hadn't really heard of it. But it's the luck box with these different cards and all these different little wooden resources that are shaped like insects and berries and fish and rats and sun and, leaves and that, all really nice. Those little nests are all really good. The artwork it's a weird style, but it's colourful and it's still good. It's not going to be up to the levels of like Beth Sobel's artwork or anything, but it's still nice and colourful. I mean, you can see this picture alone. It's a pretty neat, pretty Instagram photo here. So I know, I was impressed. I honestly thought this was better than I expected it to be. So I look forward to trying it some more. I would give it at least a 7 out of 10 right now and say it's good and something I could actually recommend people playing. But maybe that rating could go up if, when I get to play it, a full game of it, try it some more, play it with some of the expansion elements or something. But I mean, if I see a secondhand copy of this, I might even grab it to see, a bit more about it, because, a lot of these little Kickstarters just get forgotten, and sometimes it's with good reason. But this one I don't think should be forgotten. I think this one deserves a little bit of extra attention, at least to find out for certain if it is actually a decent game through and through or not. But yeah, first impressions, pretty good, pretty impressed with Biome. So yeah, I look forward to my next game of that. But it's good to get a little few surprises like that. There's so many times where you kind of go into, you find a game and you can just see the kinks in the armor quick, or that there's some red flags being held up here. This one didn't really have any red flags apart from just being a first game by a first Kickstarter and that, and being sort of a clone of Wingspan and Earth and that. But those red flags were kind of put to rest when the rest of the game actually still seemed pretty solid. So yeah, we shall see. Hopefully we get another game soon. Right, what else is there to talk about? Probably nothing specific, so why don't we go on to the main topic. So Dragonox gets credit for this idea for a podcast episode, and I obviously started getting into games properly somewhere around 2013. So I think I've been doing this for about like 12 odd years. Not necessarily content creation, but certainly getting into games. And the way I know this is because my Google Photos kind of started around that point. And I looked back at the earliest date on my Google Photos, and it is basically when I was living in a flat and doing content creation from a flat. Trust me, a flat next to a noisy, busy street in Portsmouth. Not easy to do content creation, but I did it, and I mean, if any of those videos still exist, I mean, they are amateurish at best. They're rubbish at worst. But, I was getting into games, and this is when I first went to, the aforementioned Portsmouth Club, back when it was probably more decent than it is now. But, yeah, it was back when I started, wow, board games have become this now, have they? More than just what I was playing at university and that. So I came across this photo. So this is the photo I came across, and it's not very good focus. It's pretty terrible focus, to be honest. I mean, it was it was at night. The lighting was not very good in that flat. I mean, it was a good flat. I turned it into a pretty good little bachelor pad with cocktail mixer maker kits and all that stuff. You know, I was good at hosting little parties around there, or come dine with me nights. And that table was possibly a bit of a mistake. It was a poker table that I bought with these fancy chairs around it. Now the chairs were cool, but maybe a bit over the top. The poker table was basically one where it was almost like a Geekerson table in a sense. It had the felt, but it was mostly like, because I was into Texas Hold'em poker at the time, a friend of mine designed the wooden insert to go in it, so it basically was my board gaming dining table. So it was quite nifty, but yeah, maybe with hindsight I got a little bit too much into that bachelor pad thing. So this is what the Calyx shelf looked at. This is my first ever Calyx shelf, and it's a 5x4 Calyx square, so typical Calyx design. It's got 2 basket cases like my current ones have, which hold accessories and bits like that. But these are the games that I first got in the collection. So, you know, these were the ones where I first started out. And I don't know what's in that cracker tin down there in the middle. I can only imagine that's more accessories, or maybe that was just a convenient holding place. And the focus is really bad. So I'm just trying to identify the games that we've got here. So we have got Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, taking up in the whole Calyx square. Cutthroat Caverns. We have Cockroach Poker, we have Small World, we have Expeditions, which was the old one that was based on the whole wildlife adventure from the 80s or something. We have Caverner, Terra Mystica, Agricola, Ticket to Ride. Yes, I did own Agricola at one point. Ticket to Ride with a couple of expansions. Cosmic Encounter, Libertalia, Seasons, 7 Wonders, Flashpoint Fire Rescue, the first game I ever reviewed. King of Tokyo, Dixit, Survive, Escape from Atlantis, Kingsburg. Cool, remember that one. Carcassonne with various expansions. Lords of Waterdeep. What's that? Smiley Face, which was like an old little card game done by Fantasy Flight Games ages ago. And Spirium. Oh, okay, you remember Spirium. There's maybe 1 or 2 other games here that I can't quite tell what they are by the focus, but that's the majority of them on here. And the question basically from Dragonlocks is out of these games that basically first got you into the hobby, which is what these games were. These were the first ones that I remember grabbing and trying and going, oh yeah, I love these games. I want to try more board games. How do they hold up now? Do I even still own some of these? You know, I mean, a lot of these I may not still own anymore, but you know, this is basically a case of going, right, I'm going to go through this shelf and give my thoughts as to whether I still own it, what I think of the game now, why is it not in my collection anymore, and, you know, we'll just go for a bit of a nostalgia trip. As soon as I've downed myself in some squash. Righty, so let's have a look at this then, and we'll sort of borrow BGG for this a little bit. So we got Arkham Horror 2nd Edition here. So I like the Arkham Horror games. The Arkham Horror games are still pretty solid, and you know, they're fun to play, but they are definitely getting to a point where I don't think I can like really say that they're practical, and that's kind of the issue I have, that you know, they're impossible to get played. You know, they're good fun, but Eldritch Horror had so many expansions and got bloated. Arkham Horror 2nd Edition got bloated. I've still got, I think, Arkham Horror 3rd Edition somewhere. Yeah, it is down there, and I haven't played it in ages, because even that one feels like quite a bit of a rot to get out. But I do still have Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. Now, I still like this game. I mean, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition is probably the most, like, theme-heavy one of the lot. I mean, man, you want to get into the really horror elements of this game. This and the Arkham Horror LCG is probably the best way to do it. But look at it. It was a table hog and a half. I mean, look at this board. This was the board. I think this was an expansion board. Then you had all these different card decks and all these tokens and all these character sheets. And, man, it was an event. But, man, for a thematic horror story co-op, it was a fun event, going to all these different encounters, and it really didn't hold back on some of the grittiness. I mean, there is some horrific imagery in this game, actually, particularly from some of the expansions. I mean, I remember, like, there's a couple of, like, old ones, like, that appear on the pictures, like, on these big cards, and one of them shows, like, a big sort of monster thing holding his mouth open, like this, and these cultists are basically dragging a woman to be sacrificed into it. It's like, okay, that's pretty grisly. But then there's also the Plateau of Leng, Leng, and this one is the Spider Queen, or whatever her name is. I forget the name, but I don't want to find the picture. But it's got a close-up picture of the face of this creature, and it basically looks like a kind of, if you imagine the face off the painting, the Scream, you know, the one that's like that, without the hands, take that face, make it even more horrific, like stretch it out even more, put it on the face of a spider creature, and that was the picture. It was serious nightmare fuel, especially for someone like me. Playing against that enemy was difficult for me. It really was quite hard to look at that picture and do it. And knowing me, I'll accidentally come across it in the picture, so I better be careful here. But eventually, it just became too much. I couldn't play it. It was too impractical, too much to set up, too many rules. And things like Eldritch Horror came out, which replaced this, and then Mansions of Madness came out, which replaced that, and the Arkham Horror card game. So it's a product of its time. Would I play it again? Yeah, if there was an event and we were just around someone's house for the evening and it was like, you know what, we're going to go into nostalgia and play one of these, I'd be down for it. But yeah, I since do not have any of this. I sold my entire Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror collection off. Those big crates I used to have up there are gone, made, got some money back for them, and yeah, they were great, but just a bit too much. What else we got? Cutthroat Caverns. Right, well, this one definitely did not stand the test of time. And Cutthroat Caverns is not a bad game per se, but I think my taste in games has developed since then. Because basically Cutthroat Caverns is one of those major take-that games, real take-that, where basically you're all going into a dungeon and you got to kill a bunch of monsters. So it's like a D&D type setting. But the idea is that you're trying to get the killing blow on the monster because then you get the prestige value. And there is a lot of take that in this. I mean, you are sabotaging each other like crazy. And you need teamwork to survive. But the fact is that you can basically, step on each other's toes or, blunt each other's weapons or something and do what you like in order to actually mess them up so that they don't get the killing blow. But if you don't work together for some extent, then you won't be able to kill the rest of the monsters by yourself and you'll die as well. So there is a cool little aspect to it. And it's a funny idea, but these days I'm not really into these big take-that games anymore. They're good, they're fun, they have a little party atmosphere, but there's a decent amount of rules in here. You need a specific group to play this with, and man, can it make some people angry. You play this with the wrong people, and they will just get worked up as crazy and really not like the fact that you're constantly screwing each other over with, human shield, trip, plan B. I mean, look at this. Trip. Play on another card after they reveal their attack card. Their attacks all miss this round and they lose their next turn. I mean, this sort of stuff is not good game design now. And, you're doing this a lot to each other. So you have to know exactly what you're getting into with this game. And after a while, it was just a case of a few too many clunky rules, too many FAQ moments, and I'm just not into these take-that style games anymore. So this one definitely left the collection after a while. Didn't take too long, in fact. Cockroach Poker. I still have Cockroach Poker on my shelf, the exact same copy, and I still think this is one of the best little fillers I've got. Cockroach Poker Royal will probably be my choice here with the sort of Royal cards as well. But this is just a simple bluffing game of, this is a rat. Do you believe me or do you not? Are you willing to call me out or are you going to pass it to someone else? And it just generates so many laughs for a little filler because it's getting into your opponent's heads. I mean, that is why it's called Cockroach Poker. It's more about playing the players. You don't necessarily know exactly whether you could work out the odds. It's like, what are the odds that you have a cockroach, given that there's 6 on the board already and I've got one of them in my hand, or something. But it's like, it's more, do you believe the player? Do you trust them? And it's just quick, simple, but man, is it funny. This one is just such a big laugh. And I know some people I know absolutely detest this game, and I can totally see why. But personally, I've still got it, and I still like to bring it out every now and again. And the fact that it's a loser, not a winner. So it's like, avoid being the one who loses the game. That's it. There's no actual winner. That's a cool little feeling. People, you know what you're getting into, but you don't have to feel like somebody's constantly winning the game all the time because there isn't a winner. It's just don't be the one that gets knocked out. So I still really enjoy this game. This one's still just a great laugh. It still holds up, and it would actually qualify as one of those tiny games because it does come in a pretty tiny box. All right, what else we got on here? Swig of turn. Swig of coffee. Small World. Cool, blimey. Who remembers the days when Small World was one of the most, staple games that you could have in your collection? It was just nothing could get past this game. Dice Tower loved it. Loads of other people were saying, oh, this is great. This is one of Days of Wonders evergreens. Do you see anybody ever play this game anymore? Man, has this game died. And it is died a death. I mean, you still get Ticket to Ride being played. Occasionally, rarity, but I might see a Carcassonne being played. Catan, again, not as often, but occasionally I'll see a Catan being played. I never see Small World played. Small World has just gone from the face of the earth, and it was a fine game. It was area control, this cool concept that you basically combined an ability with a type of race and created all these weird, wacky races, and then went out on the board and did area control. Fight each other, deterministic value, so no dice. Well, actually, was there dice? I can't remember. I can't remember if there was dice, but if there was, it was a small impact. And, the game itself was fun, but I don't know. After a while, I think I kind of just got bored with it. And I must admit, area control is not my favorite genre in board games. I mean, it's not one I hate, but it's definitely on the lower end. I find area control just to be a bit like, same old, same old. And so it's hard to impress me with a blunt area control game. And so I think for that reason, this one kind of just got a little bit stale for me. There was quite a decent amount of setup involved because you need to have all the different pieces, and it just became a bit fiddly. It scaled very well for players. I mean, it did a really good job at giving you different player boards for different player accounts. The expansions kind of dropped the ball a bit. I mean, you had the underground version, which was quite cool because it was just another basic game. But then the expansions just got ridiculous where it gave you so much variety. And then there was like realms and another one, islands or something. And it's kind of like, you're making this game a little bit too weird and complicated now. So I'm not sure I want to carry on that front. But I mean, did I own both? I owned Small World and Underground and expansions. I had a lot for this game actually, but eventually I just never really felt like playing it. And even to this day, if people have Small World in their bag or whatever, I will opt for other things now. I think this is dropped from what may have been like an 8 out of 10 originally, and probably would only be about a 6 now. It's still fine, still a fine game, but I think half the problem is that some of those races become stupidly powerful. The sorcerers especially. You get flying sorcerers on the table, and you might as well just say game over and give the winning vote to whoever takes that race. They are just overpowered like crazy, and so there is a little bit of issues with that. But yeah, the game is still fine. I just kind of got bored with it. Expeditions, I'm not really going to talk about that much. I think I only bought it to try it because of a nostalgia trip of we played Wildlife Adventure with the parents on a regular basis. I wanted to try the new version. I think I tried it once, found it just wasn't the same, and there's a reason why I only played Wildlife Adventure with the parents and the family, because it's objectively not that great a game. It's just, this is nice time with the family, so I'm not really going to bother with that one. Flashpoint Fire Rescue. Wow. And I don't know if I've got time to go through all of these. I might have to gloss over some of them, but Flashpoint Fire Rescue. Wow. I still have that literally behind my back. It's literally behind my back. It's just slightly lower down, I believe. I don't want to twist around too much because I'm worried I'll twinge my trapped nerve a bit. But where is it? Flashpoint Fire Rescue. It's annoying because you've got to remember whether Flashpoint has a space in it or not. There you go. I still own this game. Granted, I have not played it in years. This is one of those games where it's like, I do respect the game and I still don't want to sell it, even though I've got maybe too many expansions and it's a bit bloated by now. But I've got a good carry case for it. I've got a good box for it. And it's small. It doesn't take up much space. So I still want to hang on to it. But I still hold that this is actually a really good game. I mean, it's still 490 on Board Game Geek, so it's still got a high ranking despite nobody ever playing it anymore. But this one was just a fun game, and it was the first one I ever reviewed on the channel when I used to just do written reviews. First game I ever did, Flashpoint Fire Rescue, and I thought it was a great co-op. I mean, you can play it in family mode, you can play it with more interesting stuff, but the fact that everybody felt involved, nobody felt like they were being useless. I mean, yeah, your character might not necessarily achieve as much, but you're involved, you're discussing, there's so many options on your turn that are still legit options. Do you want to put out the fire? Do you want to grab those chemicals? Do you want to get this person or the cat out? Do you want to get the fire engine around the other side? There's a lot of things you can do, and they all seem legit in terms of these are useful things. And with all the expansions, you've got all these things like house, skyscraper, cruise boat, what else? You got a submarine base in one of them. You got all sorts of weird locations. A medical lab, multi-stories. That was always really cool. So yeah, there's a lot of variety in this game, and I still think it's a fun co-op. The rules are very simple, and it's pandemic-like, so it's got that sort of appeal. But rather than curing diseases, which is still a decent enough theme, even though that's quite abstracted, this one felt like quite a thematic firefighting game. And firefighting games are not that common, and certainly not really any good ones. I mean, since Flashpoint, there's been one or two firefighting-themed games, and none of them are particularly good. But yeah, this one I'd still give respect to, and I would actually like to bring this out again at some point, just to have fun at a club where there's not, people who don't want to play particularly complex games. It wouldn't take me long to go through the rules again, and as a co-op, it's just good fun. Yeah, it's a good theme. It's a solid game. I still got it, and I'll still probably still hang on to it. At some point, I need to bring it out again. Right, what have we got? Right, I'm not gonna go into too much detail on the ones that I still have, all right? In fact, let's just go over the ones that I still have. So Cosmic Encounter is still on my shelf. I still have that one. However, that one is dubious as to whether I want to hang on to it or not. I used to like it a lot, but now I'm starting to wane off it. And partly is because it's very group dependent. You need the right group. But also I think I bought too many expansions for it. And it's just too bloated. It's hard to tell what half the powers do. They are ridiculous, some of them. And if you play the same green powers all the time, it gets a little boring. It really does need 5 players. You want to use the reward decks, but then that means teaching weird rules to people who have never played the game before. It's becoming impractical, and I think Cosmic Encounter could be a cull one soon, which will make me sad because I've had it for a while, as you could see, and it's a fine game, but if it's never going to get played, it's never going to get played. And I think Cosmic Encounter has just had its time because, let's face it, when do you ever see it played? I think it's a product of its time, and even when each expansion has come out recently, it's never had anywhere near as much buzz. Pretty much Tom Basil's the only one who talks highly about it anymore. So, yeah, not so much on that. I know which ones am I keeping. Here you go. Seasons and Seven Wonders. You already know the score with me on that. I've talked about those in my top 50. I love Seasons, the big chunky dice, the planning ahead for the game, and then the timer mechanic that's variable. I love Seasons. It's still a fantastic game. Libertalia. Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders, come on, it was in my top 20. I mean, I think it was 20, or was it 21, or whatever. But, Seven Wonders, still love the game. It's a great drafting game. This is like the original version. I don't think it even had leaders or cities at this point. This was just a base game at this stage. And, yeah, I still love Seven Wonders, and I've still got it. But obviously, it's upgraded to the 2nd edition now with, the newer versions. But, yeah, I collected all of this and had fun with it. Ticket to Ride, still got it. Of course, it's all in a big brown box, giant, oversized, heavy crate in the other room, which was probably a mistake. I do kind of regret it now, but I don't have the boxes to put the pieces back in their original one, so I'm slightly screwed on that. I don't suppose anybody's got all the boxes for the Ticket to Ride collection spare and not doing anything with them, because maybe I'll take them off your hands. But yeah, Ticket to Ride is still good, and this is when I had like 2 expansion boxes, and Europe. Man, did that suddenly increase in quantity. Caverna, still got that one, still love it. It's right there on the shelf to my left, and it's still going strong. Still love that game. What else got? Dixit, still got everything to do with Dixit. So yep, all the cards down below. Great game, family weight game. It's gone over well in all sorts of groups. I don't play Dixit as much anymore as I used to, because I play things like Mysterium and Detective Club and that more. That use the same mechanic, but I still have Dixit because occasionally there's a time when Dixit is just going to work. Carcassonne. Do I have Carcassonne still? I'm not so sure I own Carcassonne anymore. I don't think I do. I'll get back to that one. Lords of Waterdeep. Do I still own Lords of Waterdeep? No, I think I got rid of that as well. Wow. Okay. Well, that's all the games left that I actually still kept. So not that many. All right, well, let's go back to some of the ones I let go then. So Libertalia. I keep getting mixed up here. Libertalia, that became more of a player scaling issue, really, because Libertalia does have a problem that you don't want to play it with too few people. But then if you play it with a lot of people, the game just sort of drags out and takes a while. I mean, it says 40 to 60 minutes on the clock. Yeah, good luck with that, especially when you're playing it with 5 or 6 players. Yeah, so it was hard to get the perfect group for it. I love the artwork in it. I thought it looked great and the cards were great, but I think the problem was that it was hard to get the right count, because too few players meant there wasn't enough stuff going on. But then too many players meant it was too chaotic. So you really needed to play this with 4, really, and 4 was the only count it worked at. Yeah, I suppose that could be one of the good ones for top 10 games for 4 players, but I don't enjoy the game enough anymore. I liked it more back then, but now I just think that it's a bit too random for my liking. It's, yeah, and it's a shorter game, so some randomness is fine, but it's just, I have played some games of Libertalia, and this is including the Gale Crest one that Stonemaier did. And there are games where I have come close to winning. In fact, I even think I won the game at one point, where all I did was shuffle my cards and randomly play one each turn. Like, I didn't even think about the character, I just played it randomly. And still did better than most other players and even won a game doing that. It just makes the game feel a little bit like, if you could literally just let random chance dictate your ability to win the game. So I eventually got rid of this one, and I don't like the look of the new Gale Crest one. I think the artwork on it's pales in comparison to this old one. So if you can get the old version, I do recommend it, because you can just house rule a couple of the new rules that they improved in the Stonemaier one, into this one easily enough, like the reputation, how that works. But yeah, it was alright at its time, but I'm just kind of over it now. 5, 6 out of 10 now. I just don't really feel like playing it. Alright, cool. What else we got next? No, I don't want to go to Google. Oh, I do want to go to Google. I want to go to Google Photos. Right, here we go. So, Ticket to Ride, Cosmic Encounter. Ah, here we go. Right, Terra Mystica and Agricola. Right, well, Terra Mystica, I have definitely kind of weaned off that one. And there's some people who love Terra Mystica and will play it every last chance they get. And it's still number 31 in the Board Game Geek, but I've gone bored with it, because the thing is, my tastes were new at that point. I respected Terra Mystica for its thinkiness and like, oh, this is a big Euro game with a big, decent amount of variety. Cool, cool, cool. And it still has that aspect. But I have definitely developed to want more theme in my games, and Terra Mystica just has no theme whatsoever. It is a bone-dry Euro. And so it just got to the point where I didn't want to bring this out over other games like Caverna and that, because I wanted to play the more thematic stuff rather than this one. And even to this day, you've now got Gaia Project and Age of Innovation, and they're basically the same for me, Gaia Project and Terra Mystica, but Age of Innovation is better than both of them. But the problem with Age of Innovation is that it gives you so much to look at and plan ahead for at the start that it's just too overwhelming for most players to deal with. And even for me, I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know which bonuses I should aim for? But the problem is, if you don't pick which ones you're going to aim for, you won't be able to get them, because you don't have enough leeway in the game to be flexible with your strategy. You've got to pick your strategy from the get-go and follow it through, because if you change your mind, you're just going to lose. And that sort of bugs me as well, because I like the more tactical feel games. But this one was okay. The whole building next to a player to get cheaper stuff I didn't like, because especially with 3 players, you found that 2 people buddied up and one person got left out, and then they were screwed because they couldn't afford anything. So, that was always a problem. Some of the factions were definitely overpowered compared to others. I mean, let's face it, if you have a game where people bid victory points to get certain factions, that is a sign that your factions are unbalanced, and apparently people, do I need to use the Timon meme? It's like, and everybody's okay with this? Did I miss something? It's very much like that. So this one I just weaned off over time and eventually sold it. I don't own it anymore. And I tried Age of Innovation. I did a review for that one, but again, that was kind of 6 out of 10. I found it above average. This game's just not ready for me. I mean, I get why people can like it. There's definitely things here that I go, oh yeah, people are going to like this stuff. They're going to like this stuff. They're going to like this stuff. And I do think Age of Innovation is a fine game, okay, but it's not for me. I'd rather play a more thematic, interesting, heavy Euro. These ones just kind of got a bit dull for me. So yeah, I weaned off that one, but it took a while before I weaned off it. It was, I didn't get rid of it that as soon as some of those others like Cutthroat Caverns and that. Now, this one stayed in the collection for a while, just not stand the test of time. And Agricola, oh blimey, yes, how many times have I talked about the comparison of Agricola and Caverna? Well, this was at the time when I really, was getting into the farming genre as games, and I still love the farming genre, but I was kind of like buying both, because I was in 2 minds as to which one I preferred out of Agricola and Caverna. They were different enough games, but they still had a similarity to them. And blimey, these are weird. Somebody's made some weird cool farmer models, and this is the problem when I browse images on here. It's like everybody puts up their photos of their nicely painted minis now, and it's like, well, good for you. Your stuff's great, but I'm trying to find out details about the game, not your miniatures. Thank you very much. But yeah, it's was this cubes back then? Pretty certain they had meeples then. I don't know. The version I had actual animal meeples, so I don't know where that came from. Maybe that was a prototype. But Agricola is a fine game, and I do respect it, but it's too punishing. It's too restrictive. The fact that you must get kids or you lose, and it's so hard to get kids, it just makes it a bit painful. All the different resources you get, I mean, it's so tight. And the fact that if you don't get one of everything, you lose so many points in terms of its it's, like your ability to do well, that just put me off over time, and I would have liked a looser version of Agricola. Well, I got it. It was called Caverna. So Caverna was the answer to my prayers, and so I didn't... No, I like these. These are pretty good. Hang on. Sorry, I had to clear my nose a bit there. Yeah, so, I respect Agricola. I can totally see why people like Agricola. And if it's your favorite, then by all means it is. And the fact that Awakened Realms are actually doing a reprint of this has me intrigued, because I'd be interested to know if they change any rules or make it a little bit looser or whatever. So, or do they just keep it exactly the same? But I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that one, especially the weird one that they've got where they combine it with zombies. That sounds like a laugh. But it could be that Awakened Realms are dropping the shark a bit, but I'm going to keep a look, so I'm going to keep a look, and we shall see. But eventually, I could only keep one, and I prefer Governor, so Agricola got axed. King of Tokyo. I like King of Tokyo fine, I've just never really played it in ages, and again, kind of group dependent, and the King of Tokyo Duel is quite a nice two-player version. I mean, I like King of Tokyo fine, I just didn't feel like owning it. It wasn't a game that I wanted to bring out. Other people wanted to bring out, and so I would just play it when they did. And every game cafe in the world has King of Tokyo in it, so it's not like I really needed to own it. And with the game taste that I've got with my collection, King of Tokyo just didn't quite fit along with everything else, because this was more the game that you were kind of playing with families and kids rather than, main adult gamers. So it just didn't really get the plays, and even though I had the Dark Edition, which I still think is the best looking one of the lot, it was fine. I still like the game. It's still a good game. I still recommend it for families, but I just kind of got a bit bored with it and decided it wasn't worth owning for much longer. Do I have it? Oh, actually, tell a lie. I still have King of Tokyo. It's down there on my shelf, the Dark Edition. I thought I got rid of it. I mean, how much is that Dark Edition worth? Because I'm pretty sure that's out of print. I'm going to have a think about whether I keep that game or not, but do some research on that. Yeah, can't believe it. I just had a look and I just saw it down there. That is weird. But yeah, clearly I'm not playing it much because, well, I forgot I even had it. Okay, so what's next? Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Ooh, Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Yeah, this one got a little bit... Oh, God. What was that? That was Revolution. Oh, man, that was an average game. All right, cool. So Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Now, I like Survive fine, and I got this one mainly because of nostalgia, because I don't think you'll be able to find it on BGG, because I think it's just the reprint version, but I had the old 80s version of this, and we played it at home, and I used to love it. I loved this game, this quirky game where you had people to survive on an island, and you had to get them to the shore, but people were trying to eat you with sharks and sea monsters and octopuses, stuff like that. It was just a really cool, funny thing for families or something. Do I want to play it much as an adult? No, not really. And that's the thing. This one is a very big take that game, and it can feel a little bit unfair in some respects, where somebody gets ganked on way too much. And there are certain mates that I cannot play this game with because they know I win a lot of games, so they purposely attack me over anybody else, even when it makes more sense for them to attack another person. And that's not fun for me. It's not fun if you're just going to gang up on me every game, to the point where I have no chance. Because if I've got no chance, why am I playing this game? And the problem is with this game is that you do end up in a situation where so much of your stuff gets eaten that you just can't physically win, so you're just going through the motions. It's not a particularly great design of a game, but I liked it more as a kid. It was funny, it was quirky, and it does have some laughy moments, but as an adult now, after like God knows how many years of gaming, I think I've just grown out of this one. I can see families still liking it, although tell your kids not to throw a paddy whenever their stuff gets eaten. But, adult-wise, I don't see this one played pretty much ever at all. It's not something I'm going to be able to play with people I know, so eventually I just got rid of it. It just wasn't for me, and I was getting a little bit frustrated with it. Okay, what else we got? Oh, Kingsburg. God blimey, does everybody remember Kingsburg? Dice Tower would not shut up about it, nor would Sam Healy. It was like one of his favorite Euros. Called Kingsburg. And the thing is, I've still got the similar one to this, which is Alien Frontiers, although that might be one for the coal pile as well, because that's quite hard to get to the table. But this is Kingsburg 2nd edition. Now, I had Kingsburg 1st edition at the time, and I'm going to bring out that one rather than the other one, because there's Kingsburg, right? Look at that cover. Look at that cover. It looks lovely. It's gorgeous, man. Even though it's a dry Euro game, you want to grab this, and then you've got the boards, which look colorful and amazing. Yes, all good and good, right? Okay, let me now show you Kingsburg 2nd edition again. So here we go, re-implemented by Kingsburg 2nd edition. Goddamn, does that look like a horrible cover? That is such a... Look at the difference here. You know, which one would you pick up off the shelf? This one or this one? Blue, bright, lightning in the background, really good contrast, a bright sunny city in the foreground with the darkness in the background. I don't know why it's got the darkness in the background, but it's like, you know, it looks so gorgeous and colourful. And then compare it to this dry, brown, beige piece of tat. I mean, this is such a god-awful looking cover. And it gets worse when you get into the actual components of the game. The components of the game are pretty nasty. I mean, it's horrible. It's ugly. It's like, I mean, it's not the worst artwork I've ever seen, but man, it's so disappointing. So, like, grey and brown and just ugly looking or something. So I'm just going to go back to the Kingsburg normal one because that's the good one by far. 2nd edition did incorporate the expansion in, but then if you bought the expansion separately, you could just do it anyway. But Kingsburg was a decent game. You rolled dice and you used them to activate the different characters, and those characters allowed you to build buildings, do stuff with resource management. You had loads of different buildings to do. You had different paths to victory, but then you also had to prepare for, the adversaries, the monsters that came around every now and again. It was a neat little game. I think the problem I had was that you really wanted to play it with the expansion. The expansion wasn't the easiest one to teach new people, but I think I just kind of got a bit bored with it. Not to say that the game is bad. I still think the game is good, but I'm not sure if it would stand the test of time compared to a lot of Euros these days. And dice rolling, activate stuff in a Euro game is so commonplace now that the market is saturated with this style of game. And I think even with the buildings that you had, I found that you kind of got a bit stale after a while. Because some of these buildings you never played because obviously you could only go so far up a track. But yeah, there was some that you just sort of made all the time. Some that you never bothered with. And they just didn't feel like interesting buildings a lot of the time. Now, the expansion helped a lot with that, to Forge a Realm or whatever it was called. But even with that, I think it just got to a point where I was a little bit bored with it. And the game is still good, okay? I still think it's a 6 out of 10. Possibly could even call it a 7 out of 10. I think it's still worthy of a seal of endorsement. But I just kind of didn't feel like bringing it out. I got a little bored with it, and so eventually I did sell it. So I don't own this one at all, and I'll never get it again because A, I don't think I like the game enough to warrant it, but also that 2nd edition looks so much garbage that I don't want to play anything that looks that ugly. So yeah, not happening with that. Carcassonne. I think I got rid of Carcassonne. Yeah, I did. I've got small islands there, which I prefer. I've got Isle of Skye, which I prefer. Carcassonne for me has just not stood the test of time, and I do like it. But the problem is I want to play Carcassonne with a bunch of the big box expansions in it. So I want to play with the inns and cathedrals and the builders and traders and stuff. Not necessarily all the weird, silly little expansions, but the big ones at least. And then it's harder to teach new players, and part of the fun of Carcassonne is the fact you can teach new players. Farmers are still overpowered. They never really truly balanced out farmers. You could just win the game so easily if you did well with farmers, and particularly when you use the river expansion. I mean, you put a farmer out as early as you can because that farm is going to be huge. It's just, it didn't really work out for me, but I do like the whole build the map and connect the roads and the terrain, and you create this cool little map, and the spin-offs were fun. Some of them was pretty interesting spin-offs, jumping the shark with the themes, but still good fun. And Carcassonne is still a good game, and I still recommend it to people if they need something simple to play with the families. But yeah, it does look a little bit dated now in terms of its art and style, and I just preferred other tile laying games to it and just decided it wasn't really for me to keep. So yeah, it was fun for a while, but eventually I just kind of got, it's done. It just felt a bit dated at the time. Hey, there we go. What do we got left? How much time we got? We're nearly up to an hour, so we need to hurry this up. So what else we got? Well, all right, we've only got 3 left. So, Lords of Waterdeep. I just eventually got bored with Lords of Waterdeep. I prefer other worker placements. There are some simple worker placements that I prefer. I don't like the mandatory quests in this game. I think they're annoying. It's a mechanic that you can't easily you could take them out, I guess, but it's still a bit of a pain. You really want to play it with the expansion, but then that makes the game quite long, too long for what it is, and it's obviously more to teach players. I don't know, I mean, the game is still fine, but I think it just ran out of steam for me. I can go, oh yeah, this is fine, I do this and this and this, and then get cards and play them. But and it had the interactive element with the buildings, which was quite good. But I think I just got bored with it after a while. You know, it stood the test of time for a good while. It was in my collection until probably in the last couple of years, maybe even only the last year since I got rid of it. And I had it expanded. I had an insert for it. I had some upgrade pieces for it, you know, so somebody got a good deal out of me for it. But yeah, I think there's just other stuff I prefer to play. I mean, there's worker placements that I do like that are on this weight level that I prefer. And also Rivers of Gold came out recently. Now, Rivers of Gold isn't really quite a worker placement game, so they are two different games. But in terms of like a dry, simple Euro that I can teach to just about anybody, that's very smooth, very elegant, River of Gold just ended up being like a much more fluid game than this did for the same kind of length and weight level. And why am I trying to type in fluid? Ugh, I was trying to make. I did a review on this, so you can check it out. But I was impressed by how smooth this one was. And so this one kind of made me get rid of Lords of Waterdeep, because I thought, well, if we're talking this kind of weight level and this sort of dry Euro, this one, you know, looks better, was smoother, and in some ways quicker. Yes, it's a different game, but it just fit that kind of niche of the market that I was more interested in. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin. But yeah, and like I say, they are different games, but they're both dry Euros, but they're very smooth, very easy to learn and fluid. So, you know, this one kind of got the vote. But yeah, Lords of Waterdeep's still a good game. I just kind of got to the point where I'm like, meh, I don't feel like it much anymore. Okay, this next bit, the Wi-Fi cut out at a pretty prominent point when I was just about to introduce Smiley Face. I was just basically saying, right, this is the next game from Fantasy Flight Games, and it's essentially the emoji card game. So we'll resume the podcast at the point where the Wi-Fi cut back in. You haven't missed any description of the game, but it's just if I'd left it unattended, it would have been a bit of an abrupt transition from one to the other. So, all right, let's get on with it. Yeah, here we go, Smiley Face. It was kind of like the first emoji game, basically. And it was kind of a weird sort of wacky game, and I'm trying to remember the rules to it because it was so long ago. But basically, yeah, you try to collect the highest total face value of cards of a single type. And was it? Yeah, you play the cards in such a way that you're going to have the highest score and you're going to take the score. But then there's a mechanic where you can drop out of the round and give a token to the other player, lend them a helping hand with a card, hope they'll win the points, which means that if they win the round, you get something as well. So there was a good little bit of interaction in there, alongside the silliness of all these different emoji cards and various like special effects and that. And it was an interesting little quirky card game, but yeah, it didn't really stand the test of time. It wasn't going to get to the table with a lot of people, and obviously you showed them this cover, Smiley Face, with these emojis on it, with Fantasy Flight Games toys as the brand. You know it's not necessarily going to be a game that everybody's going to get appealed to, but this was a Bruno Fedudi game, and you know what he's like with his sort of chaotic, like crazy games. It was an interesting, quirky little game. I liked it, but yeah, it was never going to stay in a collection forever. Eventually that one had to go. And then finally, before we wrap this up, Spirium. Oh man, this is probably one of the more nostalgic ones from there. Spirium was one of the first sort of dry Euros I remember playing at that time. It had just come out, and I really enjoyed it. I think, reviewed it quite highly. And it was from your Starry Games, of all people. Yeah, not the sort of people you would think, oh yeah, you know, these are going to put out a game I like loads. But this was an interesting one. I'm trying to remember how it worked. You had these different cards that came out, which were like the characters and certain objectives and buildings and stuff. And you put your meeples out between the cards to activate them or to claim them. But based on where you were, you made it more expensive for other players to do stuff with a certain card based on how many of your meeples were surrounding it. So there was a lot of interaction with other players. You know, to make this. And it was quite a fun, easy game to learn. Didn't take too long. 75 minutes is kind of accurate, you know, 90 minutes tops. But I'm trying to remember how it sort of works. So, yeah, you need factories, you need workers, blah, blah, blah. And you need Spirium as a resource. And what's this? Yeah, and you're constantly scraping for money. So, what have you got there? Flexible enough. Circular nature. Yeah, here you go. Circular nature of the game is flexible, as each player can decide for himself when to move out of the placement phase and into the activation phase. With the two tracks in the game, those involved with delivery during the worker phase can then be used to raise money, to purchase an adjacent card, which gets more expensive with more players around it, or to work on their own in an idle factory. So, you know, it was a very tight game for money, and it caused a lot of good decision space, but I don't know, I think after a while I kind of just didn't really bring it out. It only had so much variety, and I decided to move on from it. And it's not exactly much of a looker. But This was an interesting game. I mean, if you find one second hand, I recommend grabbing it if it's cheap. If you can find one for like 10 quid. I don't think this game was very expensive. It can't have been more than 20 quid at the time, so 15 might be pushing it. But if you find this on a second hand for 10 quid or less, I recommend grabbing it because you might actually find this a pretty sweet little game. It was definitely a unique game at that time for me, and it was something new, and I was first in the games, but it just didn't stand the test of time. For me, anyway. It may do for you. So, there you go. That's the collection that it started at, and I've just noticed you can actually see the, I've still got these cups. These Le Creuset cups. I've had these for years, man. But you can see the bottles over there. I kept a few on my windowsill, and it's like, that's a few liqueurs there. Chambord and a couple of others there. Yeah, I used to make a lot of cocktails back in the day, and I still would enjoy making cocktails now, but I don't think I'm hosting the kind of parties anymore where cocktails are needed, but part of me does miss it. It was a good time, and hey, but I think it was better, like, 15 years ago or something when I was in my 20s, because that time you were going to more house parties, you were a bit more in the dating scene, you were kind of almost trying to be the highlight of the party by, I go to this house party, you've got a bunch of booze here, I've brought me kit, let me make some cocktails, and you're instantly Mr. Popular. It certainly worked on that front. But yeah, I still really like cocktails. I would still love to make them, so I think it's just a time thing. If I win the lottery, and get my own mansion place or whatever, then you can guarantee I'll get back into it then. But not so much now. I like my cider, I like my wine, especially love my mead. So it's just that's the way it is now. So yeah, lots of stuff there to talk about. So hopefully that was interesting for you. A little trip down memory lane in my beginnings as a board gamer, a die-hard board gamer, as well as the content creation side of things. But yeah, some cool stuff there to reminisce over. And it's surprising how much the collection has changed a lot since then. Like how some of these games haven't stood the test of time and have finally been laid to rest. But the fact that there was some there that are still here. I mean, I forgot Caverna was a 2013 game. So I've had that for so long. And a couple of those other ones there, like the Cockroach Poker, is still there in my collection. How Ticket to Ride grew, Flashpoint Fire Rescue, the first ever game I reviewed. There's some interesting little ones to talk about there. But I'm interested to know your thoughts. So by all means, let me know in the comments of games that you've had. Well, we're talking like the first days you remember board gaming. I mean, if you can think that far back. But are there any games that you had at the start that you eventually got bored with? Are there any games that you've had since you started being a die-hard board gamer that you still have? And why do you still have them? Why do they still stand the test of time for you? So that'd be interesting to know. But I'm going to wrap this one up now. Hour and 6 minutes. Throat needs a rest, and back is twinging a little bit. I'll probably go to the gym for a run later because that usually helps. I can still run with it, but if I go to the gym, warm up for the run, lumber up a little bit, stretch myself, then that helps. And then I do some exercise, that loosens me up a bit. I think it's just because I'm a bit too tense with the stress of stuff lately. So I just need to de-stress. And the best way for me to do that is to go to the gym. So I will certainly do that later. And then maybe play some Baldur's Gate 3. That'd be quite cool. Maybe play some Monster Hunters Wilds. Me and some friends are playing that now. We used to play as a board gaming group. We used to play Monster Hunter World as a foursome, and we had fun just co-oping with that. We decided to get into Monster Hunter Wilds recently, and as much as the multiplayer is some of the most janky pile of crap I've seen in a video game, we're pushing through it, and we're just enjoying the fact that we get to play hunters and play again. I think I'm trying out the bow this time round. Might secondary into dual blades. I used to be a sword and shield munchkin in World, and I was really good at sword and shield. But I did want to try something different, and the bow is a bit of a tricky weapon to get used to, actually. So dual blades might be something good on the side. But anyway, I digress. I might play a video game later. And what am I watching on TV? Well, Invincible and Daredevil are obviously during the week, and Daredevil didn't get off to the best start. Invincible is still fantastic. I mean, the last week's episode was amazing, and this finale is going to be awesome. I can't wait for this finale, especially as I don't know the comics, so no spoilers. But yeah, I don't know. I've tried to get away from spoilers, and I haven't been able to get off that many spoilers. Last week's spoiler with a particular character I knew was sort of coming. It's like I dulled it a little bit, but I know nothing about what happens from this next one, so I do not want spoilers, okay? I want to go into it completely blind and get blown away. Love the series, but what am I watching at the moment? Yes, last night I started watching Solo Leveling. It's, I always like to watch an anime from time to time, and I'd already finished Attack on Titan, loved that. Watched Delicious in Dungeon, really enjoyed that, so I'm waiting for the next season of that. So I needed another anime, and a friend of mine recommended Solo Leveling, and I heard good buzz about it, and it sounded like a funny concept. So I watched a few episodes last night. I'm intrigued. I need more characters to latch onto. Bard is just one dude. But yeah, I mean, the premise sounds cool, and I'm interested to see some kick-ass fights in it, because I hear that it's got some episodes that are just like mind-blowingly good on the animation front. So, and it is pretty brutal, so I do like that. But yeah, I've got stuff to help me. So thank you for listening. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. Galactic Cruise will be coming out in the next few days, so by all means look forward to that. And I'll speak to you on the next podcast. So take care. Love you all. Remember, it's only a game. Bye for now, everyone.